following is a presentation of Main Street Media, your source for news, sports, and information on Main Street in Middle Tennessee. Well, we made it to a Friday here on Main Street Sports today as we welcome you in. Our special guest host today, Mr. Steve LAYMAN, News Channel 5, will be joining us throughout the show today, where we will be joined by Nashville Sounds play-by-play voice Jeff M., our regular Friday 2:15 slots, embroiled in a series just west of here down in Memphis. We'll chat with him about that series and more. Joe REXRODE around 3 o'clock. Double timing. We get double the dose of Joe REXRODE today. The Athletic Nashville, plenty to get into. Game 6, the NBA last night. The Warriors get the win. College World Series. That's the MCWS. NHL, Stanley Cup, Preds, and more. Plenty to get into with that. The Braves go for 15 tonight. We'll preview it. Mo's feeling pretty confident about it. We got one Braves and one Cubby, apparently. Back-to-back Cubs fans. Mo on the show. So adds a little extra spice to the weekend series. Let's get after it. Happy Friday. JP Plant, the Hall of Famer Mo Patton, Steve LAYMAN, our special guest host, News Channel 5. Gentlemen, happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you as well, JP. And it wasn't necessarily by design that we had back-to-back Cub fans as the Braves travel to Wrigley Field, looking to extend that win streak. And actually, that's not tonight. That's right now.
Ah, yes.
Braves
right.
and Cubs scoreless, middle of the third right now. So, and Steve, very much in the same vein as Teresa Walker yesterday, doesn't live and die with the Cubs. And right now, that's probably a good thing.
That's a very good thing. I love the Cubbies. I grew up with them, guys. But, if you lived and died with them 162 games a year, you'd be a very depressed individual for most of your life. So I can say that there was that glorious October, or maybe it was November 1st or whatever, night back in 2016 that was pretty special. And frankly, when that happened, I could die happy. So I choose not to die with them every day when they struggle.
Well, they certainly are right now. As JP said, we'll get more into that later in the show as the Braves go for their 15th straight, and the Cubs hope not to drop their 11th straight. As Teresa corrected me yesterday, they're not streaking, they're skidding right now, the Cubs are. So we as Braves fans are hoping that skid continues for another 2 or 3 days here anyway. But a lot to talk about, and our top story, we'll call it the puck drop, because as we were keeping tabs on Game 6 of the NBA Finals, which we'll also get into later, news started to break about the Nashville Predators being sold. And Axios.com is reporting that former Governor Bill Haslam is joining the ownership group of the Predators, gradually purchasing shares from lead owner Herb Fritch over the next 3 years. So I guess that means that eventually Bill Haslam will become the lead owner. Steve, what do you understand about that situation, and what do you feel like it means for the Predators and for Predator fans?
Yeah, it's interesting. It came kind of as a shock to me last night, Mo. I think it's a lot of people, because we hadn't heard much, if anything, about this up until the initial reports came last night. But it makes a little bit more sense to me, because if you go back to the end of the season when the Predators lost, I think there are a lot of people out there who are calling for somebody in ownership, Herb Fritch or somebody, to step forward, kind of give an explanation of where they feel this team and the franchise is right now. Because obviously it feels like they're going in the wrong direction. They keep going to the playoffs, but compared to the run that led up to 2017 and how special that was, getting to the Stanley Cup final, they don't feel anywhere in the same ballpark as that right now. And so I think people were looking for somebody to stand up and say, hey, this is what we think is happening right now. This is the direction we want to go in. This is our faith in David Poyle and John Hines, et cetera. And it never happened. And the idea now to think that maybe the plans were in the works, that they may be shifting towards a more permanent owner or a controlling owner, so to speak, like Bill Haslam, makes more sense for the silence. because I know those guys wanted to be in the background, but at some point, and I think the franchise is in this place now, you need someone who is literally writing and cashing the checks to step forward and talk about the direction. And they just don't have that person right now. Maybe Bill Haslam in the future will be just that.
Well, Fritch is one of 17 people that own shares in the franchise. So who is that person that steps forward and signs the checks? Surely it's not all 17 of them. I mean, how unwieldy is an ownership group of 17 folks for a major sports franchise?
Well, it can certainly happen. And obviously the way it was set up here in Nashville was critical because it's what kept the team here in Nashville back in 2007. And so that ownership structure has served the franchise very well for a long period of time here. But I do think they've kind of reached this point where they have made the in-game experience at Bridgestone Arena as good as it can get. They have made the team a consistent playoff contender. They had the deepest run in playoff history. They were 2 wins away from winning the whole thing. They've been right there on the doorstep, but I think a lot of fans are looking around now and they think that in-game experience maybe has gotten a little bit stale in the last couple of years. The product on the ice has gotten a little bit stale the last couple of years. The general manager has made a series of questionable decisions, and you look at him at 72 years of age and you think, is this the guy that if we need to take a step back or reload or rebuild, however you want to phrase it, is he the guy that's going to be willing to do it? I think those are the questions that Predators fans have right now and that they were asking at the end of the season, and they never got an answer. So I think that is where the ownership structure comes in to be a problem. Is it's difficult for one guy, even Herb Fritch, to step forward and speak for 17 people, as you mentioned. But if you get a controlling owner in there, you can liken it a little bit to the Titans with Amy Adams-Strunk. When Bud Adams passed, there was confusion about who exactly was controlled. Was it Susie? Was it Amy? Was it Sam Smith? It was a very difficult conversation back then. And then all of a sudden, Amy stepped over to be the controlling owner. And since then, the Titans have been a well-oiled machine in terms of renovations, movement with the new stadium here in town, the international game, the NFL draft, the new jerseys, the team winning. All of that stuff has happened since she became the controlling owner. And I think if you're a Predators fan, you're sitting back here thinking right now, maybe that's what can happen if Bill Haslam becomes the man facing forward for the Predators.
Go ahead, JP.
I was just going to say, we've seen a Haslam in ownership of a sports team before, right? Now, granted, a different Haslam, but still a Haslam nonetheless. So, Steve, how will this be different, or will it?
Yeah, no, it's a fair question. It's a totally fair question. I do think that the thing about the Haslam ownership is they've been around with teams before in professional sports. And so if you get Bill Haslam in, obviously he loves the state of Tennessee, he loves Nashville. So, I think you draw on that experience, obviously, with him in that regard.
Sure.
It was a question that begged asking, JP, because I was kind of looking at that as well.
I didn't mean to steal your thunder there, Mo, but yeah.
No, you're fine. You're just fine. Apparently, again, according to Axios.com, this transition is supposed to happen over maybe a 3-year period. There's been no word out of the Predators on this officially. So this is all, I don't know if it's unsourced necessarily, but it's not straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. What type of boost do you think this gives over a 3-year period, Steve, as the transition takes place?
Well, if it truly is 3 years, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't really get an official explanation from the Predators for 3 years, because their track record has not exactly been that they're forthcoming with all the information when it's, first and foremost on the burner. And so I think it may be a very quiet and kind of slow transition until they reach a point that they and even if they get to this point where Bill Haslam essentially takes over the role as controlling owner or chairman of the team from Herb Fritch. And then maybe when that happens, he becomes a little bit more front-facing because Herb Fritch, like Tom Sigeran before him, those guys don't really like being out front and talking. As we mentioned, when you have 17 owners that you're speaking for, that's a difficult proposition. And as smart as those guys are, I'm sure they don't necessarily want to get out and say things that maybe a couple of the members of the ownership group don't necessarily agree with. And so they just leave the operational stuff up to Sean Henry and the hockey stuff up to David Poyle and his staff. And that'll be interesting. I mean, perhaps Bill Haslam, because of that family's background in sports, maybe he will want to have a little bit more say, or maybe he'll be willing to come forward. The political background, he'll be willing to step out and say some things and even take some heat from time to time. Maybe that'll happen. But I imagine this will be a fairly slow, smooth transition into whatever role he ultimately takes on.
Definitely an interesting development as we saw last night and into the morning. Apparently, former Tennessee Governor Bill Haslam set to become the lead owner of the Nashville Predators, and certainly something that we'll be keeping tabs on as it progresses. JP?
Yes, sir.
You've gotten a bit of a reprieve this week with the rundown. It's been fairly short and quick. That's going to change today as we get into Thursday's results and the weekend's upcoming schedule here on the rundown.
Yep, it is Friday. That means it's the weekend. Let's get to it.
This is the Rundown. The Friday Rundown is brought to you by Chip Walters of Exit Realty, Bob Lamb and Associates. The voice of the Blue Raiders also wants to be your trusted advisor in real estate. Contact Chip at 615-542-1915 or through his website at choosechip.net. Chip Walters, proud to support local youth sports in southern Middle Tennessee.
All right, let's get to it. Thursday results in Major League Baseball. The Padres over the Cubs 6-4 yesterday. Phillies 10-1 winners over the Nationals. It was the Mets 5-4 over the Brewers. Again, the Brewers, Mo, letting us down. The Sounds fall to Memphis 7-6. We'll talk with Jeff Him coming up in our next segment, so stay tuned as that weekend series will continue this evening. Last night, Game 6, NBA Finals, the Warriors 103-90 winners as they pick up their fourth title in 8 years. Steph Curry named Finals MVP, 4-2. They get the win in Boston last night. The schedule for today, we've got the Phillies and the Nationals already in progress, as are the Braves and Cubs.
Phillies leading 5-1, bottom of the sixth. Braves and Cubs, no score, top of the fourth. So,
okay.
All right.
Elsewhere in Major League Baseball, the Brewers at the Reds tonight at 5:40. Game 2 tonight, Phillies at the Nationals, a day-night doubleheader. Cardinals at the Red Sox, 6:10 Central. Also at 6:10, Marlins at the Mets. And the Sounds still in Memphis, 7:05. Caleb Bushley is your starter there tonight. The MCWS, that's the College World Series in Omaha. Currently, the first game out in the top of the third. It is Oklahoma 8, Texas A&M 3. So Oklahoma, the Sooners, continue their hot start or hot play here in the postseason. Tonight at 6 o'clock Central, roughly, it is Texas versus Notre Dame for day one of the MCWS in Omaha. American Legion Baseball post-19 seniors are down in Troy, Alabama, taking on post-70 or at the post-70 Father's Day Invitational. They'll be there through the weekend through Sunday. U.S. Open continues today, round 2. Currently, Taryn and Lingmerth are at 4 under in the lead. Scheffler, Rahm, Morikawa, Hardy, Harmon, and Damon all at -3. And I believe Rory was at 2. He may have dropped back down. Yep, he's back down to 1 under. Double bogey on the third hole. Got a birdie back, but is bogeyed and is at 1. Elsewhere, it is the NHL Stanley Cup Final, Game 2. Let's see. No, we'll go to Saturday's schedule. There we go. Don't go down too far. Braves, the Cubs tomorrow, a day game. 1:20, your first pitch on Bally right for the Braves, Justin Steele for the Cubbies. Brewers at the Reds, Marlins, Mets, Phillies, Nationals, all afternoon matinees. Cardinals at the Red Sox tomorrow night. Sounds continue their series 6:35 in Memphis tomorrow night. And day 2 of the College World Series, Stanford and Arkansas at 1, and Auburn and Ole Miss at 6. There's 3 of those 4 SEC West teams in action. Stanley Cup Final Game 2 is Saturday night. Lightning and the Avalanche, 7 o'clock Central ABC. The Avs lead that series 1-0. The best of 7, 1-0. Of course, the weekend continues at Brookline at the Country Club tomorrow on NBC. Sunday schedule, the Phillies at the Nationals, Cardinals, Red Sox, Brewers and Reds, Marlins, Mets, and Braves and Cubs, all afternoon starts, as is the Sounds and Memphis, 2:05 for that one. And the College World Series, you've got the losers bracket, the early game, winners bracket, the late game from today. Nashville Soccer Club will be in action Sunday evening at 5 o'clock, FS1, taking on Sporting Kansas City. And the final round of the U.S. Open concludes on Father's Day. And happy Father's Day, by the way, to all of you fathers out there. And that is your Friday Rundown, brought to you by ChooseChip.net.
There you go. Give JP a little bit of a break following that lengthy rundown that he's not been used to this week. And when we come back here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint, we will be joined by the voice of the Nashville Sounds, Jeff Hem. So stay tuned.
Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint treats your orthopedic injuries and existing conditions. Our trained physicians will get you back in the game faster. Contact us at 931-381-2663 or www.mtbj.net. Hey folks, while we take a quick break from the show, I want to tell you about our friends over at Custom Stone Handlers in downtown Columbia. Ed Rich and his team at Custom Stone Handlers believe in leadership. And outside of the military, our greatest leader building platform is sports. Custom Stone Handlers proudly encourages young people to get in the game. You can contact them today at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, ZionEagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's ZionEagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Are you an enthusiastic sports fan? Want to have fun and get in on the action?
Heck yes, that'd be awesome.
Have great attention to detail? Want to stay active?
Definitely.
Want to give back to the student athletes in your community?
Obviously, yes.
Then you'd make an excellent high school sports official. We need more officials in Tennessee, because with no high school officials, there are no high school sports. Sign up today at highschoolofficials.com.
Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint has been the official sports medicine provider for Murray County Schools for more than 40 years. We specialize in orthopedic injuries, and our Ortho Quick walk-in service lets you bypass the ER. Visit us online at www.mtbj.net.
Welcome back in Main Street Sports today on this Friday edition. JP Plant alongside the Hall of Famer Mo Patton and our special guest host Steve Layman, News Channel 5, joining us today. Busy show. Later on, we'll be joined by Joe Rexrode, as we'll be talking the Men's College World Series. Many topics. Also this day in Braves history, and the Braves and the Cubs. They are underway already for their weekend series. So plenty to get into, Mo. But we've got a Friday staple to get to.
We absolutely do. Joining us now is voice of the Nashville Sounds, Jeff Hem, gracing us with his, well, I'm not going to say his beautiful face, but gracing us on video. Looks like from First Horizon Park already. No. I'm sorry. From AutoZone Park in Memphis. You already there?
Yeah, I'm here. It's great to see you guys. I'm sorry you have to deal with my face, but it's good to see yours.
Well, it's it goes both ways. But yeah, Jeff, the Sounds dropped a tough one, have dropped a few tough ones here of late. And if you're into standings watching on June 17th, they are atop the International League West by half a game over Columbus and these Redbirds that they will continue their series against tonight.
Yeah, there's a few different layers, I feel like, when the Sounds and Redbirds match up. Obviously, the intrastate rivalry is fun, and the teams go way back from their days at AA in the Southern League and now long time at AAA. It's back to being Brewers and Cardinals affiliates, as those two teams are jockeying for position atop the National League Central. And then there's just the component of the Sounds kind of on their own, and they've had sole possession of first place since May the 5th. And that, again, becomes now in jeopardy tonight, as they are a half game, as you mentioned, against two teams, including the one that they're playing. Offensively in June, the team has not quite had the production that they had in May. May, they were one of the better offensive teams in the league. The pitching has been pretty steady throughout, but the wins and losses lately have kind of ebbed and flowed as the offense has gone. And there are just a few guys that they're trying to kind of get going a little bit more. A lot of different reasons why those kind of things can happen, especially at AAA. Roster movement is always a storyline. The Brewers have had some needs over the last few weeks, especially on the pitching side. So there's been movement there that at AAA you're always going to have to deal with. But at the end of the day, this is still a really good team. And even if they're not playing their best right now, and they're also running into some good teams, Durham for the Rays, Norfolk has a ton of Orioles prospects on that team, and these Redbirds are one of the better offensive teams in the league. So you're going up against good competition in addition to trying to get yourself right. But at the end of the day, about 60 games in, this is a good team. They've been fun to watch, and a lot of guys have gone to the big leagues and gotten some chances, and that'll continue. And from a Sound standpoint, it's been fun to watch them, and it's been an intriguing series so far here in Memphis.
Sounds took the Wednesday matchup 8-4 in extras. That's the one win thus far in the series for the Sounds. But I did see that Corey Ray is back, which I made it out to the ballpark on Saturday, and he was not playing. Was he? What was his situation? Has he been injured? What's going on with him?
He was hurt for a little while, and that's why he had a few weeks where he was not playing. And now that he's come back, they've been careful with him. Yeah, they don't want to get him right back in there every single day, and so he's played a little bit more sporadically. Kind of a similar situation they're dealing with in the outfield with Garrett Whitley, and so those two guys have sort of gone back and forth in terms of sharing the playing time in the outfield. But Corey is back, and he's one of the guys. Rick Sweet has said they want to get going now that they've got him healthy again. He was off to a good start this year, just like he was last year when he started to miss some time. So he's one of the guys that the Brewers are high on, the Sounds are high on, and they're trying to get Corey going. A good example of what the offense is trying to do overall, because we've seen Corey play so well, and they're trying to get him back to where he was pre-injury.
Pablo Reyes looked good in that Saturday night game that I was at. Jeff, what are the thoughts about him over the course of this season?
Yeah, he's done very well. He had a little bit of a late start to the season, something he had to go back home for during spring training, and so his timeline was kind of delayed. And he told me when we were in Toledo a couple of weeks ago, he's really starting to feel better at the plate, feel more consistent, kind of getting his feet under him a little bit with his swing and just feeling comfortable from that standpoint. And he did well when the Brewers needed him recently for about a week. He went up there. Mark Mathias is up there now, and he and Pablo kind of share the same role. They can play all over, good defensively, a little bit of power. And so Mathias is up there now, but even Pablo got a chance up there when the Brewers were dealing without Colton Wong and Willie Adames, and there have been some needs up there. So it's been good to see Pablo play well. Mario Feliciano has been playing very well offensively. That was kind of a fun storyline when this series began here in Memphis, because both teams have a really highly touted young catcher, the Sounds with Mario Feliciano and the Redbirds with Ivan Herrera. But now Herrera's going up because Yadier Molina is now hurt for St. Louis. So the Redbirds are losing a key guy from their standpoint, and the Sounds are getting good production right now from Feliciano.
Jeff Hamm, the voice of the Nashville Sounds, joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Jeff, as I mentioned, made it out to the ballpark, out to First Horizon last Saturday, and it was a really cool event there as the Sounds honored the only native Nashvilleian in the National Baseball Hall of Fame, Norman Turkey Stearns, from of Negro League fame. Played for the Nashville Elite Giants, played for the Detroit Stars, among others, and got a chance to meet his daughters, Joyce and Rosalind. And the Sounds gave out Turkey Stearns jerseys, as you guys like to call them, and it was just a really cool event, I thought.
I agree. It was great to have you there and part of it. And I love I'm proud of what our team, the Sounds front office, put together to properly honor Turkey Stearns and to continue to honor people like Turkey Stearns. It was really cool. I learned a lot. I've learned a lot about Turkey Stearns over the last few months. His daughters are tremendous people, and they're so proud to tell their dad's story. And, as I was telling you, Mo, there were other people the Sounds were trying to, early on in the spring and winter, as they're planning things, trying to figure out kind of who should we start with, who should we honor first. And different people said, well, you can't, family members of other players said, well, you can't honor my dad or my grandfather, whomever, until you start with Turkey Stearns. There was sort of a consensus of what he meant and continues to mean to the origin of baseball in Nashville, and just telling the stories of all those amazing Negro League players and what they went through, and then the recognition they didn't get but now need to get. So it was really cool. I'm glad you were there. I hope other people were there. I've archived some of the audio from the ceremony that played that people can go online and find. I've tweeted it out just because there's some great clips in their comments from Skip Nippert and other historians and Nashvilleians who were helping tell the story of what Turkey Stearns meant. So it was, it was really cool. I'm proud of what our organization did on that. I had very little to do with it, but I'm proud of them and their ability to tell Turkey's story, because it's pretty cool.
Guys, jump in.
Steve, what you got?
Well, Jeff, I'm just curious, watching from just down the street at News Channel 5 most of the time, if I can't make the walk into the ballpark. So often we see teams that get off to the hot start like the Sounds did. Well, it's because they got really good players. And oftentimes those players then get rated to go up to the big league. You mentioned a couple of those guys. How much has that impacted how they've played in June, the influx of guys coming and going? And do you see it settling down at any point, or is this just the reality of AAA baseball?
I think it's probably the reality of AAA baseball, and I think it feels even more glaring right now because April was remarkably quiet in that regard. We had almost no movement, and now the Brewers have had some different guys go down, unfortunately, with injuries. We're going to have Brandon Woodruff starting here tomorrow in Memphis on rehab for Milwaukee. That's a guy that they're trying to get back, and while he's been out, one of the better Sound starting pitchers, Jason Alexander, insert George Costanza joke here. Jason Alexander has been up for the Brewers and doing a tremendous job up there. Well, obviously, then that's one key guy of a Sounds rotation that the Sounds individually don't have. But you love the story of Jason. I mean, he's 29 years old, He's never been a prospect. He's had injuries, and it's just all sort of come together for him this year to get these chances. And he's doing really well up there. So while, yes, that does have a quote-unquote negative effect on the Sound's ability to win games, at the end of the day, you see a guy like that so deserving of a big league chance and do well with it. Those stories never get old. So that certainly has played a role, especially from a pitching standpoint. The Sound's rotation has been a little bit different at times because of guys like Jason going up. And really what happens is guys get called up who have the freshest arm, or who's on the most days of rest, who's most available in this case for the Brewers. Those are the guys the Sounds are going to lose. But rarely do you then get a guy immediately up from Double-A to backfill that spot. So that's just life at Triple-A, where the Triple-A team has to sort of just kind of figure it out and get by. And that's I think had a greater impact on the Sounds, is just getting thin in the bullpen at times because they're not immediately getting somebody back. Or if they are, it's somebody who's coming down from the Brewers, but the reason they're coming down is because they just pitched up there. So even though they're coming back to your roster, they're not going to be available for a couple of days. So it's this puzzle piece that Rick Sweet and our pitching coach, Jeremy Accardo, have to navigate. So that's life at AAA. It happens. I think the depth then is what keeps you winning games. And that's why even with all this movement in May and June, the Sounds are still where they are at the top of the division, hanging in, because they've got the depth in the Brewers organization to kind of withstand a couple of key guys going up and helping.
Mo mentioned earlier Pablo Reyes. He's having a great season. And the other guy that it seems like I'm calling his name every night in the highlight is Abraham Almonte. To get this offense going back to where they were a couple weeks ago, how important is he, and who are some of the other guys that have to step up in your mind?
Yeah, Almonte's been huge, and he is the typical sort of veteran presence that you like to have on a good AAA team, just because he's been in the game so much and had so much major league time. I know you guys will know, Mo, I know you'll know, Almonte had some huge hits for the Braves down the stretch last year. He was a big reason why that team made the run that they did. And Almonte is very proud of the World Series ring that he got for his time with Atlanta last year. And you're right, Steve. He's been huge for the Sounds, special switch hitter, plays a good outfield, and he is kind of a leader on the team in that way. So he's been big. Weston Wilson is starting to come along now. He's a guy that went through a little bit of a slow patch, but had a big home run last night, trying to help them rally from down 7-0, and the Sounds lost 7-6, made it really interesting in the ninth inning. So Wilson's been a key guy, and Bryce Terang is just so fun to watch. Every single day, 22-year-old shortstop makes a wow play in some way, shape, or form. Terang has really been not just impressive, but consistent this year. He's been a lot of fun to watch.
The Nashville Sounds finish up their 6-game series out at Memphis, 7:05 tonight, 6:35 Saturday, 2:05 on Sunday. Return to First Horizon Park for 12 games, starting on Tuesday, 6 against Gwinnett, and another 6 against the Indians. So Jeff will get to sleep in his own bed for a little bit.
Mo, I've got one final question for Jeff. While in Memphis, give me your best restaurant you've eaten this week. What is it?
Oh boy,
What's the best
I have
food?
not been as adventurous as I probably should be. I do enjoy Aldo Pizza, which is right near our hotel. Good spot there. I have not yet made it to Rendezvous. I know people feel very strongly one way or the other about Rendezvous. Have not gotten there yet.
Disappointing. That's very disappointing to hear.
Yeah, you got to make that.
That I haven't gotten there yet.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
got some time, Jeff.
And Central Barbecue is very good as well as Rendezvous. So they're on the
Gotta
weekend
get some
list.
cue.
It'll happen.
Yeah, get some cue.
Oh yeah. It's going to happen. There's no doubt. It's going to happen.
Absolutely. Jeff Ham, the voice of the Nashville Sounds, joining us here on Main Street today, presented by Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint. Jeff, we appreciate.
See you guys. Have a great weekend.
. 。  . 。 . 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. 。. .
Jeff,
Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint treats your orthopedic injuries and existing conditions. Our trained physicians will get you back in the game faster. Contact us at 931-381-2663 or www.mtbj.net. Hey folks, while we take a quick break from the show, I want to tell you about our friends over at Custom Stone Handlers in downtown Columbia. Ed Rich and his team at Custom Stone Handlers believe in leadership. And outside of the military, our greatest leader building platform is sports. Custom Stone Handlers proudly encourages young people to get in the game. You can contact them today at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
A game without a crowd is just a scrimmage. A performance without an audience is just a rehearsal. Without your presence, high school sports and the performing arts aren't possible. Ensure that these essential extracurricular activities continue to enrich the lives of students in Tennessee. Purchase a ticket to your local high school's game or performance.
This message presented by the TSSAA.
Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint has been the official sports medicine provider for Murray County Schools for more than 40 years. We specialize in orthopedic injuries, and our Ortho Quick walk-in service lets you bypass the ER. Visit us online at www.mtbj.net.
Welcome back, Main Street Sports Today, presented by Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint. JP playing alongside the Hall of Famer Mo Patton and Steve Layman, News Channel 5, our special guest host today. Coming up, we'll be joined by Joe Rexrode around 3 o'clock today. Update on the U.S. Open, gentlemen. We've got now a three-way tie atop the leaderboard. Morikawa has moved to 4 under, along with Taryn and Lingmer. There we go. So those 3 at 4 under, and then 5 more at 3 under, including Scotty Scheffler and others. So there's the latest from the Country Club, Mo.
The Country Club in Brookline, Massachusetts. Yes.
There are no others.
Yeah.
No others.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that yesterday. I thought it was a little presumptuous of them, but JP gave me a little history lesson. They are one of the first 5 country clubs. Is that right?
That
JP,
was what I heard yesterday on the broadcast, one of the first 5 to join the PGA. So I guess they have a little bit of, a little bit of oomph behind that, calling themselves the Country Club, because they were one of the first.
I will say that calling yourself the Country Club sounds much better than of the first 5 country clubs.
That's true.
So they at least did that right.
Rolls off the tongue a little easier, right, Steve?
Steve, we just figured they were maybe opened by an Ohio State University graduate.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
Influx to the Northeast from Columbus.
Yeah, there you go. Braves getting one of Charlie Morton's better starts to this point. 4 scoreless right now as they go to the bottom of the 5th. They and the Cubs are tied at 0. And, and Steve, again, in your position as sports anchor at News Channel 5, I'm sure that you've kind of been paying attention to what they've done over the course of the season and obviously over this last couple of weeks, starting to really catch fire and obviously put a little pressure on the Mets maybe in the NL East. As a fan, it just feels like they've been playing closer to their potential and fun to see because they weren't early on. But, from a guy who does this professionally, what are your thoughts on what they've been able to do here for the last couple of weeks?
Well, don't you think sometimes we see, especially with teams who maybe haven't been there before, like the Braves were last year, they were first-time champions in that run they had last year, which is incredible. I think maybe there was a bit of a hangover that went into the spring. Whether that means they partied too much into the winter or didn't get the season went so long, they didn't start back up as early as maybe they normally would otherwise. I just don't think they came out of the gates very well, and maybe we're living in 2021 a little bit as opposed to playing the April schedule in front of them. And obviously some of the lockout talk and everything that happened this spring made the spring training and the preseason sort of weird for everybody. And they did get off to a slow start. And I wondered how much that had taken out of them and if they would find their stride. But they certainly have here as of late. I mean, the numbers keep going. And frankly, a lot of these games haven't even been close. And you sort of look out there and you wonder, especially when they're playing the Cubs this weekend, if they're ever going to lose again. And obviously, they're going to lose between now and the end of the season, but they definitely look much more like the Braves team I think we expected them to be coming into the season. And I also think maybe the Mets have taken a step back a little bit. They were playing great baseball early on in the year, maybe better than I thought they were. And so now they're coming back to the pack a little bit. The Braves are playing good ball. And I frankly expect that the Braves are going to win this division before the season's over because I think they're playing much more like we expected now.
Yeah, absolutely. They've put some things together. As you mentioned, the short spring training, the season started late. Maybe some pitchers like Charlie Morton weren't as locked in early on. Charlie Morton coming off of the broken leg that he sustained in the World Series against Houston. So had a few things working against him, and maybe there was a little bit of a hangover, like you said, Steve, but they certainly seem to have snapped out of it as of right now anyway. I think they're averaging about 7 runs plus per game in this 14-game win streak that they're on right now. But the Cubs and Keegan Thompson, of all people, holding them scoreless to this point. Again, 0-0 as we finish up the bottom of the top of the 5th here now. So
I don't expect that to last long, by the way, with the Braves offense and the Cubs bullpen, team that's lost 10 straight. I don't think we're going to be looking at goose eggs on the scoreboard. Even the manual scoreboard at Wrigley, they're going to put up a crooked number at some point.
I think we lost him over. He'll come back for just a second. We had now actually the top of the 6th with what I'm following. The Cubs were able to get a runner on first base. They got a second hit of the game, but then hit into a 5-4-3 double play, and then Hayward lines out to Adam Duvall. So we head to the top of the 6th, still scoreless now, Mo.
Your feed is ahead of my feed.
So you said top of the 5th. Yeah, we're now to the top of the 6th.
Yeah, you're well. I meant bottom of the 5th, but yeah, you're playing spoiler role there, but that's okay. We'll take it. JP, I'm sure you've been to Wrigley.
I have. One of my favorite days as a sports fan, just in general, of attending events. Something that I didn't think about, Mo, when we had our Top 5 Tuesday. This should have been an honorable mention. When I was in college in Murfreesboro, we took a day trip. Back then in Southwest, you could get a $39 flight to Midway. So we flew up first thing in the morning, took the L train all the way out to Wrigleyville, got some Bloody Marys, went to the day game, came back, got some stuffed crust pizza, Chicago style, got back. I was back in my apartment in Brentwood by like 9 o'clock that night. So a full day. Flew up, flew back, saw the Cubs. I think they played the Pirates that day. It was just a fantastic day. And then got to go to opening day against the Braves with my dad another year, and it snowed. We watched the game with snow. It was April. I think it was on his birthday, April 11th. And it snowed in Chicago, one of the coldest games, because you're not prepared for that at a baseball game, right?
Well, you can't be in Chicago.
Cold. Yeah. But not us Southern boys. I mean, come on,
Yeah.
So, but
what's
beautiful
funny about that? The first time I went to Wrigley was in August of '92, and we were sitting under the roof. And if you're not in the sun, the wind off Lake Michigan can be a little cool. It wasn't very comfortable that day, unfortunately. But first trip to Wrigley, so you kind of take it as it comes. But it's a fun old park. I've got a Wrigley Field story, but I won't get into it. But it involves a former MTSU player, a good friend of mine, Jason Maxwell. So good stuff. I guess we should probably do this day in Braves history, JP.
Fire away. I'll get your music going. Go right ahead.
All right. There we go. On June 17th, 1956, Milwaukee Braves slugger Joe Adcock becomes the only player to hit a home run onto the roof of Ebbets Field. Adcock hits 3 home runs during the doubleheader sweep of the Brooklyn Dodgers, will go on to hit 13 career home runs at Ebbets Field, more than any other visiting player. So got in the Wayback Machine for today's This Day in Braves history. And again, if you'd like to have your business on This Day in Braves history, contact us. So that's the end of the Brave segment here on Main Street Sports Today. When we come back, going to discuss a little bit more baseball, because there was an occurrence a couple of days ago or a couple of nights ago that kind of wanted to delve into a little bit. So stay with us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint.
The city famous for its music is quiet now, but it's about to be overwhelmed by the symphony of speed. Nashville Super Speedway will be rocking from the pit to the grandstand. June 24th through 26th, the Ally 400 NASCAR Cup Series race weekend brings a mix of incredible racing and live entertainment. Tickets are going fast, so visit NashvilleSuperspeedway.com today and join the full throttle fun.
This is Chris Yao with Main Street Sports Today. Every show, Mo Patton and I welcome friends from all across the sports landscape, from high school coaches and reporters to national, college, and pro sports personalities. You never know who might stop by for a chat. AP Tennessee Sports Editor, 3-time Tennessee Sports Writer of the Year 2020 TSWA Hall of Famer. She covers the Titans, the Predators, the Grizzlies, college football, and hoops. Please make welcome Teresa Walker.
Former University of Tennessee, former Team USA Olympian, ex-Cy Young Award winner, R.A. Dickey. R.A., did I miss anything?
Man, that was sweet. Yeah, I need to listen to that before I go to bed every night. That was nice.
Has 5 sports Emmys. That's not bad for the other guy in Wham, Ryan McGee.
Other guy in Wham married the best looking girl, Bananarama, so other guy in Wham had a pretty good life.
From preps to pros, we're taking on the sports topics you care about. Tune in across Main Street Media social platforms at 2 p.m. or on demand on your podcast distribution platform of choice.
All right, second half, the final half of the week as we head towards Father's Day weekend. We'll be joined by Joe Rexrode coming up in just a little bit. Also, we'll actually have a double segment with him. Plenty to get into, including the Preds, the NBA, College World Series, plus a little story that Mo wants to get into. We'll talk about it as we welcome you back in the second half. The Hall of Famer Mo Patton, Steve Layman, our special guest with us today, News Channel 5, with us all afternoon for another half anyway, but for the whole show. So glad to have him in on this Friday as we welcome you back here in the second half. So a lot to get to, Mo, so I won't waste any more time.
Yeah, you're not wasting any time, man, but I appreciate it. Steve, a couple of nights ago, Tyler Anderson of the LA Dodgers took a no-hitter into the eighth, 8 1/3 before giving up a triple to Shohei Ohtani. But there's an article on LATimes.com regarding Dave Roberts' decision to let him roll after so many other similar situations where that wasn't the case. And I just thought it was an interesting situation as you look back at it, and Dave Roberts made some interesting comments in this article from the standpoint that, you know, you don't get many opportunities to throw a no-hitter, and for this guy, 32-year-old left-hander who hasn't really been that guy throughout his career to be in that position. He had thrown 99 pitches through 7 and just felt like Roberts did, that everything kind of lined up. He had a short start in his previous start. The Dodgers were going to have an extra day off, that kind of thing. So he wasn't going to be he'd be pitching on longer rest than normal in his next start. But Roberts has been so cautious with guys in the other direction previously, cutting guys short on those type opportunities. And this column kind of lauds him for letting him pursue that opportunity. And I thought when we've heard these type scenarios discussed and when we've seen Roberts kind of get beat up for those early hooks, that you've got to manage a pitching staff for 162 games, and providing the entertainment of somebody being able to say, hey, I went to the ballpark and saw a doubleheader. I saw a no-hitter. That's not necessarily what you're there for as a manager. It just kind of strikes me as odd, maybe. I mean, I think it's great that the guy had the opportunity to get it, but and hopefully the 123 pitches that he threw don't come back to haunt him later on. I mean, you never know how that's going to work out. But I just thought the whole situation there was interesting.
Yeah, it is, and it really shows where we are today in Major League Baseball and baseball in general. Is these pitch counts? They're like the gospel. You cannot go above a certain number. You want to hold guys to a certain number of innings. You manage not just the number of pitches, but like the stress level of the pitches. It's gotten very fine-tuned, and I'm going to sound really old here, but as a guy who pitched growing up, I think you should be able to throw 123 pitches and come back in 5 days and it not be any problem at all. That's part of the job. I mean, literally these guys spend all year long fine-tuning their arms and their entire body to get out there on the mound and throw the baseball and then come back and do it all over in a couple of days after that. So I certainly think when a guy is on the verge of potentially making history or having the best outing of his career, you should give him a little bit more leeway there. And then, maybe next time out, maybe you've got a little bit quicker hook because he did throw 123 pitches. Maybe you get him out after 80 or 90 in the next game if you think it's important to balance that out. But when a guy's in the groove like that and going, I think he should be out there. And I don't think it will affect them long term. You're right. You do have to manage the entire staff and every arm for 162 games. But, man, if this is the downfall of Tyler Anderson's season because he threw 123 pitches and came that close to a no-hitter in the 9th inning, then we've got bigger issues with our pitchers in baseball.
Absolutely. A lot of attention to them, but they are a little beat up. I mean, Walker Buehler is out right now. Clayton Kershaw has had his issues, obviously. But to your point, I mean, I think you're right. I think a major league starter should be able to throw that volume of pitches and be okay, unless they've got something in their history that dictates otherwise. It was so counter to Roberts's approach previously that that's kind of where it kind of caught my attention to some degree.
Well, and I applaud him for that because I think, if anything, too often we see Major League Baseball managers become robotic. They've got some level of they've got a book there, or they've got a philosophy or whatever written on a napkin from Morton's dinner last night in their back pocket, and they just stick to it all the time. And a guy gets into the 7th inning and gives up a base runner. He's retired 15 consecutive guys, but you immediately go to the relief pitcher. I think especially in the postseason, you see that all the time, where a starter's doing well and he gets into the 6th inning and then all of a sudden there's one base runner on, and you go into this formulaic bullpen thing where you think you go to like a long relief guy and then a short setup guy and then the setup man and then the closer. And that's a lot of pitching changes where anything can go wrong and what you figure is probably a tight game if you have a starter that's pitching well at that point. So I applaud any manager that kind of looks at the situation, understands the guy on the mound, and tries to think about the situation as a whole as opposed to just do it by the book.
It's interesting that you use the term formulaic, because that's what I always loved about the National League. I'm an anti-DH guy, just because it's really kind of plug and play. You make a couple of pitching changes, and other than that, you just go on. There's no real repercussions for when you make a move on the mound or anything like that. And so you can go 5 or 6 guys if you want to, and it doesn't change anything in terms of how it impacts your offense. But yeah, when you've got guys that are rolling and then they have a little hiccup, sometimes you let them work through it. I think we've seen it on the Braves side with Kyle Wright and Ian Anderson in a couple of situations where they've run into a rough spot, and I guess in part because of the DH, they've been allowed to kind of work through it. So, sometimes the best move is no move.
Yeah. And I also think, especially when you're early in the season or maybe early in a guy's career, sometimes it's good for him to experience some of those lumps too. And I think that is specifically the case with Kyle Wright, a guy who's got all the arm talent in the world and experience in big games at the college level and now at the professional level. When he first got up to the big leagues, he had some struggles up there in various different roles, and he went from starting to the bullpen and all that sort of stuff. He had to work through some of that. And now I think he's throwing the baseball pretty well, and I expect Kyle Wright to have a very good and long major league career, unless, knock on wood, there's an injury or something that comes into play there. But sometimes you need to experience some of that adversity to understand what it's like at that level and what it takes, frankly, to pitch consistently at that level. And I think, to your point, the Braves allowed some of their young stars to experience that.
Interesting insight from News Channel 5 sports anchor Steve Layman. And what I picked up on, Steve, is you're a former pitcher?
Yeah, you got to go back a few years for that. We're talking 20 years ago now. But, yeah, I used to throw a bit.
Used to throw a little. Listen to him. Steve Layman spending the afternoon with us here on Main Street Sports today. JP, what are you holding on to over there?
Well, I was just while you guys were talking about the pitching, I was updating some scores, and for those that may not be able to see it, that may be listening right now, Atlanta Chicago still scoreless in the 6th. Philly is leading Washington, bottom of the 7th, 5-3. Oklahoma now a 12 spot on Texas A&M. That's in the bottom of the 4th, 12-4 the score there. And Lingmerth is now at -5 to lead the U.S. Open. There are 4 others at -4. So that's the latest on sports going on at this moment.
That score out of Omaha is pretty interesting, because I think a lot of people, as they looked at that 8 teams that got through, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this with Joe Rexrode when he joins us. I think there are people that would tell you that Texas A&M was probably playing the best of anybody going into Omaha. And so for Oklahoma to be up, you said 12-3?
12-4.
12-4, excuse me.
But still early, only in the 4th inning.
A little unexpected, I dare say.
Yeah. Well, Oklahoma's been red hot down the stretch of the season. They won the Big 12 tournament down at the Globe Life Field in Arlington. They went in, won a regional in Florida, who was red hot, got to the SEC tournament championship, and then went to Virginia Tech last weekend and won pretty handily, putting up a bunch of runs. So Oklahoma's playing great baseball right now. They've got a lot of momentum here. Maybe that's not all surprising. But, by the way, 2 of these teams who are in Omaha, there's 4 SEC teams there that doesn't include either number 1 Tennessee or the Vandy Boys. And 2 of the other teams there are coming to the SEC in Oklahoma and Texas. So it's not going to get any easier to either compete in the Southeastern Conference or to find your way to Omaha out of this conference in the coming years.
Yeah. I wonder how much of a chip Oklahoma has on its shoulder, because I think they feel like they should have been a host team in that regional round anyway, and got sent to Florida as a number 2. And that's kind of where they built on that momentum from coming out of the Big 12 tournament, and certainly have carried that into Omaha, leading A&M 12-4 here in the 4th inning.
They just went to the top of the 5th.
Good Lord.
Yeah, just
That's-
updating that. They win the top of the fifth. So A&M is the home team as the higher seed, of course. So they will get the last at bat. And we've seen in this College World Series tournament, no lead is safe, right? So it's a long way from being over. 12 runs, and just an 8-run lead is nothing that's gonna make you sleep easy at night. I would imagine. Not yet.
Yeah, well, guys, and I had a question going into Omaha, if we would see the prolific offense of this season continue, because historically that ballpark plays massive. I mean, they went like 5 years with 3 home runs in the College World Series total. So I wondered whether it was Tennessee or whoever went out there with the huge numbers of home runs and runs put up this year in college baseball, if that would continue in that ballpark, and at least through 5 innings of game 1, it appears that it is doing just that.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, when we come back here on Main Street Sports today, we will be joined by Joe Rexrode of The Athletic. Going to kind of be a hodgepodge. So there's a lot we can pick Joe's brain about, and so we're going to see how far we can go with that. So stay with us on the other side of the break.
Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint treats your orthopedic injuries and existing conditions. Our trained physicians will get you back in the game faster. Contact us at 931-381-2663 or www.mtbj.net. Hey folks, while we take a quick break from the show, I want to tell you about our friends over at Custom Stone Handlers in downtown Columbia. Ed Rich and his team at Custom Stone Handlers believe in leadership. And outside of the military, our greatest leader building platform is sports. Custom Stone Handlers proudly encourages young people to get in the game. You can contact them today at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, ZionEagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's ZionEagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Are you an enthusiastic sports fan? Want to have fun and get in on the action?
Heck yes, that'd be awesome.
Have great attention to detail? Want to stay active?
Definitely.
Want to give back to the student athletes in your community?
Obviously, yes.
Then you'd make an excellent high school sports official. We need more officials in Tennessee, because with no high school officials, there are no high school sports. Sign up today at highschoolofficials.com.
Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint has been the official sports medicine provider for Murray County Schools for more than 40 years. We specialize in orthopedic injuries, and our Ortho Quick walk-in service lets you bypass the ER. Visit us online at www.mtbj.net.
Welcome back in Main Street Sports Today, presented by Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint. JP Plant, the Hall of Famer Mo Patton, our special guest host for today on this Friday from News Channel 5, Steve Layman. Glad to have him in with us today. Quick update. We are now at the top of the 7th. The Braves and the Cubs still scoreless. Only 5 total hits. The Cubs got a couple of runners on there in the bottom of the 6th, unable to get them in. So the Braves are at the plates. And out in Omaha, still 12-4. Oklahoma batting now in the top of the 5th inning. That over Texas A&M, Mo. So not a whole lot of movement there, and they're in a commercial break at the U.S. Open. So I'll get the crawler going and try to keep folks updated.
Awesome. JP Plant pushing all the buttons and sliding all the slides down in Lawrenceburg. Again, Steve Layman with News Channel 5 joining us here in place of the vacationing Chris Yao, who should be back and well rested, or back anyway, on Monday. Not sure how well rested he'll be, but we'll see how that goes. And joining us now from the Athletic, one of our favorite guys, Joe Rexrode. And Joe, you were in Knoxville this past weekend. I think Steve was kind of looking at flights to Omaha this time last week, and that kind of got preempted. But as you look at the Omaha situation now without Tennessee in it, who do you like out there?
Oh gosh, it's so funny too, guys. Like I was just thinking today, like how different would this week have been, and was it supposed to be? In terms of digging in on all the teams out there, and preparing to go out there. And right now it'd be, I think Tennessee would be playing today, I believe, right? I think so. Mm-hmm. Who do I like out there? I mean, I guess I'll go Stanford. Stanford is a pretty dominant team this year too. Did get you got a run there from UConn, beat them in the first game in the Supers, and they won the next two. They're I guess a pretty conventional pick. I will say, actually on our show today, I picked Stanford to beat Notre Dame in the final series. Notre Dame, sometimes you see those teams like that, like Michigan 3 years ago. You shock the favorite, or the one seed anyway. I don't know if UCLA was necessarily the favorite. Vandy probably was the favorite of a lot of people still, but this year, obviously, it's a favorite, but Michigan shocks that team in the Supers and then gets to the final series. I can kind of see Notre Dame doing something like that.
They certainly, seem to have the makeup of not backing down from anybody. They went into literally a hostile situation in Knoxville and came out of there. So it would be tough to not think that they're capable, I guess. And maybe they're peaking at the right time. I think the 40 wins was a little misleading, perhaps, but that's a Notre Dame team that had been through it here over the last couple of years, as people have pointed out, went down to Mississippi State and pushed the eventual national champions to the limit on their home field. So definitely a battle-tested bunch there.
Yeah, no question. And, a couple arms that were just really important in that on Friday and Sunday, to beat the Vols. Not great depth with the starting pitching. And that's the crazy thing about that weekend is that the one thing I thought that might, just give Notre Dame a chance, they have two really good starters. We've seen that before. That's sometimes Supers can really be equalized by that, but the Vols, blasted their ace, and still lost the series. But if they can get enough good performances there, it's a good all-around team, a very old team. Coaches always talk about that, and they've got a lot of veterans, like you said, Mo. I mean, they've definitely been through a lot and to get to this point.
Yeah, I kind of liked Texas A&M until about 30 minutes or so ago, I guess.
Yeah, well, they just gave up they got it to 8-3, and you give up a grand slam, and it's like, oh, okay, never mind. But hey, I mean, who knows? This thing could end up like 15-13.
Certainly wouldn't be a first, I don't guess. Again, I had liked Texas A&M coming in. Who out of this four-team group from the SEC West do you like as having maybe the best shot at advancing through?
Well, I do like, I like the Arkansas story, and I like how they're playing, and I like their team, and the team that had the bitter disappointment a year earlier. That, of course, you could look at Vanderbilt 13-14, right? I mean, that's kind of the path for them. So that's who I'd go with. I'd go with the Hogs.
Feel like that's a solid call anyway. Joe Rexrode of The Athletic with us here on Main Street Sports today. Now that you don't necessarily have an 10 days or
There we
so.
go.
Hello?
You may want to ask that again, Mo. I think you dipped out on us.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I lost you there.
Yeah, sorry about that. Of this four teams, Well, I was going to ask you, how closely would you follow Omaha now that it's not really of local interest, perhaps?
Yeah, well, I mean, I still think I'll still watch the games. I mean, I'm watching this game right now, but it's there's obviously a huge difference between a local team being there where you're attuned to every pitch and maybe you have it on up, gotta go do something or other, right? Keep track of it. I mean, it is well timed. I mean, the NBA Finals just ended, and it worked out perfectly for the College World Series. Of course, there would only have been one more game anyway, Sunday night, but you got the Stanley Cup Final, and you got Major League Baseball regular season, and it's a well-timed event. I mean, I feel like most years, I don't know about you guys, but I mean, for me, most years, I end up watching a lot of the games or chunks of a lot of the games just because it's a well-timed event to kind of step into a void.
Yeah, I would agree. Joe, I got a question about Tennessee that we kind of hit on it on Sunday Sports Central a few nights ago, but I'm curious, you brought up the team that had the bitter disappointment as oftentimes positioned the next year. But this Tennessee team is going to lose a lot. And Tony Vitello said after the game on Sunday that he sort of joked that whoever said time heals all wounds, I don't know if they've ever played baseball or really understand what that means. How do you think Tennessee bounces back next year with, again, what looks like a pretty new cast of characters that they're going to have to deal with and the bitter disappointment of this in a tough conference? How do you think they're positioned to rebound from the disappointment of last weekend?
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating, Steve. And there are people in that program who will say, next year's team will be more talented, will be more gifted. Now, that's still, to me, that's a big statement. That certainly is looking at some recruits and some young guys, because there's a lot of opportunity for people to step into that lineup and a lot of loss. And also, I mean, my question with that is, like, what does it do? Like, look, I've been outspoken, and Vanderbilt fans have not liked it, that I think Tennessee should keep doing things exactly how they're doing them. And if it ticks people off, then it ticks people off. But it works. Just because they failed in this postseason, that's baseball, that's this tournament. You keep you keep doing what Tony Vitello is doing, you're going to keep getting swings at it, and you're going to have a lot of success. But I mean, Drew Gilbert in particular, Jordan Beck too, but especially Drew Gilbert, to me, he was the emotional heartbeat of that team, and he was the guy who was out front with a lot of the stuff that ticked people off. But they do lose a lot of that, and even like Lipsius. I mean, a lot of guys who were great players, leaders, also absolutely loved the swagger that maybe bordered into, stepping over the line at times. How different is the team in that way next year just because of those losses? I don't know. But I know this. They've got, Burns, Beam, and Doland are coming back for that rotation. And as you guys know, that's my first question on any team is, what's the starting pitching look like? They got some good bullpen arms too, and there's some guys making decisions there. We still don't totally know how it's going to look, but I mean, look, I thought they'd take a kind of a decent sized step back this year. Not huge, but I wasn't. They were picked, I guess, fourth in the East. I didn't even realize that until they said that during the Supers. But I'm hesitant to expect some big step back. It's just that we're going to have to see some guys perform, at the plate who haven't, and even like Evan Russell. I mean, there's a guy who's been such a key part of that team who you're losing now. So questions, but I would be more surprised if they're, not really good, than if I'm saying it poorly, but I would expect them to be good. How about that?
Yeah. The problem they have is they've set the expectation so high now that truly for Vol fans, they want to win a national championship in baseball. And that's what Vanderbilt somehow was able to do in 2014 after the 2013 team, which was so loaded, lost in the Super, they were going to come back and catch fire and win the national championship. That's going to be the challenge for Tennessee, whether it happens next year or 2 years or whatever. Until they get there now, I think there's going to be kind of the pressure and the question lingering over their head. Can they get it done?
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they do have, and that's the thing. I thought this would benefit them. They have Omaha last year, so for some guys, although I'd say, gosh, next year's team, there's not gonna be a ton of Omaha memory, right? From last year to next year, but yeah, no doubt. I mean, and that's the thing too. Now, if you're a Tennessee fan, you can point to that time period. And you can say, see, in 13, people didn't know, that Dansby, Swanson, and Bueller and Fulmer, those guys were going to be what they quickly became. And that's kind of the Tennessee hope is that, that some of these young guys who just couldn't crack the lineup this year, are ready to really take off. And of course, they got the shortstop from Kansas. A lot of excitement about him. And who knows? There could be more portal activity too. I would think that Tennessee, for recruits and players in the portal, would be very attractive right now.
Definitely something to keep an eye on. And we had Vanderbilt Athletics Director Candace Lee on yesterday, and she made the point, and it seems obvious, but at the same time, it bears saying it's not easy to get to Omaha.
Exactly. I mean, it's amazing. You think about, so now, let's see, for the 1 seed, since seeding started in 99, I guess now we can say it is, well, yeah, you can say it's 9 times more likely that you won't make Omaha than that you will win it all if you're the 1. Tennessee's the 9th, the 9th such 1 seed to not get there in 23 years. Pretty amazing.
That is an amazing stat. Joe Rexrode of The Athletic joining us here on Main Street Sports today. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, want to get a little bit into the NBA Finals that wrapped up last night, as you mentioned, Joe, with Golden State getting it done in Boston and whatever else comes up between now and the bottom of the hour. So stay with us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint.
Mid-Tennessee Bone & Joint treats your orthopedic injuries and existing conditions. Our trained physicians will get you back in the game faster. Contact us at 931-381-2663 or www.mtbj.net. Hey folks, while we take a quick break from the show, I want to tell you about our friends over at Custom Stone Handlers in downtown Columbia. Ed Rich and his team at Custom Stone Handlers believe in leadership. And outside of the military, our greatest leader building platform is sports. Custom Stone Handlers proudly encourages young people to get in the game. You can contact them today at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, ZionEagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's ZionEagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
A game without a crowd is just a scrimmage. A performance without an audience is just a rehearsal. Without your presence, high school sports and the performing arts aren't possible. Ensure that these essential extracurricular activities continue to enrich the lives of students in Tennessee. Purchase a ticket to your local high school's game or performance.
This message presented by the TSSAA.
Mid-Tennessee Bone & Joint has been the official sports medicine provider for Murray County Schools for more than 40 years. We specialize in orthopedic injuries, and our Ortho Quick walk-in service lets you bypass the ER. Visit us online at www.mtbj.net.
Welcome back in Main Street Sports Today, presented by Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint. Final segment of the show. JP alongside the Hall of Famer Mo Patton, News Channel 5, Steve Layman, and joined by Mr. Joe Rexrode as we welcome you back in, Mo. And final segment, still Morikawa and Lingmerth atop the leaderboard of the U.S. Open at -5. Still scoreless at Wrigley. And the Phillies still lead the Nationals 5-3. That now in the 9th inning. There you go.
Yeah, I'm starting to get a little concerned about the goings on at Wrigley Field, but Charlie Morton's still out there holding them down, so we'll see how this one finishes up. But as we mentioned before the break, Joe Rexrode of the Athletic, Golden State trailed 17-10 when I turned the game on last night with about 5 minutes left in the first quarter, and then they went on a 27-5 run and pretty well took control of that game. I had said earlier this week I didn't think it was going back to Golden State after they won Game 5. Rarely am I right about anything NBA related, so I'm going to hang on to that one for a minute. But yeah, were you shocked at the way things played out last night, Jeff?
I don't know about shocked, but I was a little surprised. I thought Boston would summon a much better effort at home and send it to 7. I just thought this was a really good matchup between two closely matched teams, and it's amazing to think. I mean, Boston is holding a lead, in that fourth quarter of Game 4 with a real chance to go up 3-1, and Steph Curry just flipped it on the series on its head. As it turns out, you got 3 straight wins for Golden State. I mean, I will say I was a little bit shocked. As you mentioned, Mo, 27-5. In there was a 21-0 run, and it was just, it was kind of amazing. Not just what Golden State was doing, but also Boston just feeding that with some really bad turnovers. But ultimately, I thought last night was Draymond Green's best game in a long time. It was one of those games where he's in every passing lane and making plays on both ends of the floor. Steph, of course, was outstanding. And I think that any questions about Golden State and that group have kind of been answered now, right?
You would think. And while you mentioned Draymond and probably his best game of the postseason, Andrew Wiggins continued to get it done last night as well.
Yeah, well, I would say Wiggins was their second best player in this series. And you think about the reaction to that trade, moving D'Angelo Russell, who I never thought remotely fit what Golden State likes to do, by the way. I thought it was a great move to get rid of him. I just wasn't sure. Is Wiggins going to finally kind of realize how talented he is and find a place that fits him? As it turns out, you go to a championship place with championship people and expectations, and look what he became. I mean, he had the biggest 2 rebounding games of his entire career back-to-back in games 4 and 5, and they were critical rebounds, particularly just on the defensive end at times when Golden State was just getting crushed in the offensive glass by Boston. And then, of course, Steph Curry creates so much space, and he actually took advantage of it when he was going downhill to the rim. He was tough to deal with and hit some big shots. He was fantastic. I mean, those two guys were the two consistent forces, really, because Clay was up and down, Draymond was up and down. Jordan Poole kind of took a lesser role because Boston was victimizing his defense, but then he had some big moments. So that's the thing about Golden State. One thing I think that was clear in this series, like they have a lot better depth, so they can bring a Peyton off, and all of a sudden he's key. Or you can even Bjelica, whose name I still butcher. Different guys that they can bring off the bench, Kuminga if needed. And Boston, I feel like Jason Tatum by the end, guys, was just tapped out. I mean, he looked tired.
Yeah, he did. He looked tired, and they weren't getting much from anywhere else. And it just looked odd to me, the number of times that Al Horford was matched up on Curry.
I mean, it's amazing. There was a possession. They didn't even double when he got that switch. They just let Steph Curry, and he did okay. He kind of banged him and kind of kept him out of there. And Horford kicks out of that. I mean, someone kind of was doing a little digging there, but it's like, why don't you just turn around and shoot over him, you know? But that's how much the game has changed. I mean, it's like everything is, if you can somehow get an open three in the corner, take that over the 2-footer, over someone who's like a foot shorter than you know? But they got away with it. You know, it's amazing if you watch. So there's that, and Golden State, some of the things they were willing to do defensively, that they were fine, which was amazing. And if you go over to the other side of the floor, some of these still shots are amazing, like where Steph is standing, or you know, maybe he's moving, but he's like near half court, and there's like 2 players within 5 feet of him, you know, and everybody else is just can do whatever they want on the rest of the floor. I mean, that's why, like, to me, Steph could have had 5 points last night, and he's clearly the MVP of this series. I mean, he left no doubt with the way he shot the ball last night, but I can't think of too many players. Like, I think of Jordan and LeBron, players who just basically have the intention of the entire opposition from crossing half court.
Yeah. And I think it was the crowning achievement of his career in a lot of ways, because it's now 4 titles. He's got the 2 MVPs, but now he gets a finals MVP to go on the mantle as well. So if there was any doubt about the greatness of Steph Curry, I think it was answered last night. The other amazing thing about this Warriors team is Draymond, Clay, Steph, when they all start every game of a series, they've never lost. So that group together, when they're healthy, when they're right, when Draymond's not getting suspended, they're going to beat you in the postseason. And I'll be honest, I was wrong, guys, in this series, because I thought at the beginning, I thought Boston had the matchup edge. I thought they'd be better defensively, and I thought it could be the arrival of Jason Tatum truly on the world stage as one of the great players. And, you know, instead, Boston lost its way defensively. The turnovers were a disaster throughout the course of it, and Tatum himself became the first player ever to have more than 100 turnovers in the postseason, which is not exactly the stat you want to hang your hat on. And then Steph Curry's on the other side doing absolutely brilliant things. So once again, they proved me wrong, and I think they really stamped themselves at a level of greatness that, you know, 3 titles in the past were great. Steph's career in the past was great, but to get back on top the way they did was really special.
I agree. Crowning achievement, or well said. I mean, you know, for all that they went through, the injuries, I mean, you never knew if Clay was even going to really be an effective player. And you can see that he's not the same player exactly, but for them to go through what they did, this time to pass, and look, there were times in those the middle 2 championships where it really was like, get the ball to Durant, get out of the way. He was incredible. And so you wondered, like, you know, can these guys do it at this age, you know, without someone like that? But Steph became that. I mean, it's remarkable to me. As a finisher, as a defender, he's so much stronger now than he used to be. He's gotten better. And then, I mean, he made that corner 3 last night, where I don't even know how the heck you even get that close to the basket, and he just drains it. It's really remarkable. Like, I can't think of too many athletes in my lifetime. Like, I think of, you know, Bo Jackson, Barry Sanders, you know, I mean, like, there's a short list of athletes where it's like, you cannot turn away when this person is performing. I put Steph right there with anyone.
One of the guys that'll be getting a ring as a result of last night's outcome is Nashvilleian James Wiseman, who made a brief appearance at the University of Memphis, but did not play, obviously still dealing with that knee injury, but seems like they really have high hopes for him once he's healthy. So they, I guess, feel like they can be back in this possession yet again next year.
Yeah, it's going to be really fascinating, Mo. And Wiseman is a huge story. Can he put the injuries behind him and be what they thought they got when they drafted him? Because, you know, add a floor running rim protector to this. I mean, and Looney did a really good job. Don't get me wrong, but if Wiseman can be what Wiseman showed at times, you know, before the injuries hit, that could be a really, really timely addition. And then you've got guys, I think Jonathan Kuminga has a chance to be special. Jordan Poole's just going to keep getting better. So I think they have a chance. I think the West is low. But I would assume that Golden State would be on the short list of favorites next year with these guys coming back and some of those young guys possibly getting better.
Definitely would think so. Joe Rexrode of The Athletic joining us here on Main Street Sports today as we wrap it up. Appreciate you coming in with us, and we'll catch up. Steve Layman of News Channel 5, thanks for hanging out with us this afternoon. Hope we didn't bore you too greatly.
Oh, it was a blast. There's a lot of stuff to talk about here in the middle of summer. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Hey, we enjoyed it. Hope to have Chris Yao back. Plan to have Chris Yao back, well rested, come Monday at 2:00. JP, enjoy your weekend. I'm going to.
Yes, indeed. We get a little reprieve from the heat for a couple of days before it ramps back up. So get out and enjoy it if you can, for sure. And happy Father's Day to all you father figures out there. It's
absolutely
a special time.
No doubt. Join us Monday, 2:00, here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint. Ladies and gentlemen, the weekend.